everyone. Welcome back to our second episode of Loss Prevention Insights podcast with your hosts, Allie, Falk, and Brittain, where we will be discussing all things loss prevention. So with this episode, I wanted to focus on professional development. And the reasoning for that is because I recently just came upon my 1-year anniversary with Loss Prevention magazine, and I really had a lot of time to reflect on that and why I went this route and how I even got here. It was kind of an interesting journey, but a lot of things play into that. And I just graduated from college only 1.5 years ago at this point. So it's all very fresh in my mind as far as, resumes, interviewing, things like that. And so on top of that, my little sister, Paige, just graduated college, and she's been coming to me a lot on questions for interviewing, like I said, resumes, all of that type of stuff, and just how she can better grow professionally. And so this being said, Jack, you've had so much experience yourself with executive search, having 40 years of industry knowledge and so much more. And I figured you and I could put together a really good podcast on professional development. To me, there's 4 categories that are the big ones within professional development. And that would be 1, investing in yourself. 2 is resume building. 3, preparing for interviews. And then 4, I would say stepping out of your comfort zone. You and I talked about this briefly, Jack, but I think those are the topics I really want to hover on. So for any of you watching out there, if these are something that you're interested in growing and developing in, definitely keep watching. So Jack, I wanted to ask, in your past, and like I said, Jack has 40 years of industry knowledge, like you can speak for yourself, but you've been in this industry for such a long time. So I know you'll have some really beneficial things here, but in your past and in your experiences, like what is the single best tactic for you that you've done or best thing that you've done to invest in yourself? And what was the outcome of it?
Well, I think that there's a lot of things that you have to look at when you're looking at investing in yourself. For the audience that doesn't know, I spent about 13 years in executive search working for the largest search firm in the country that specializes in loss prevention. So, as part of that, we interviewed a lot of different people. We looked at a lot of different types of professions. And obviously a lot of different individuals and the different directions that those individuals can go in. And when you start to talk about investing in yourself, I think that there's several steps that you can take. It all depends on the individual and what you're capable of, where you are in your life cycle, and your own personal decisions when it comes down to these things, because obviously a big one would be college, looking at academic education. That's always an important part of it. We can talk about industry certifications like the LP qualified and the LP certified, the CFI. There's the certifications through as is. There's certifications that have to do with other specialties in loss prevention that you can look at. Okay, but there's also professional investments and things that you can look at. And what I mean by that is when you're looking to develop your career, excuse me, in loss prevention, you also have to look at the different aspects of retail and how those different aspects of retail can impact your life cycle as an LP professional. For example, looking at operations is a direction that a lot of loss prevention professionals will look at. You can get into more of the technical pieces in IT. You can go in a lot of different directions, but what's most important is that you look. You pay attention and you're always looking for ways to improve upon what you're doing. If you're stagnant, your career is going to stagnate.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that, as you were just talking, it dawned on me, there is a very problematic element to a person who doesn't have awareness of their own faults and what they can be better at. And I think that's really, really vital. And, like I said, I'm pretty fresh out of this whole entire game, this interviewing, resumes, professional development, all of that, because I only graduated 1.5 years ago and I only got this job a year ago. So looking back and reflecting into anyone who's just starting out in the place that I was a year ago, you have to be aware of your own negative traits and figure out ways to navigate them and realize that you can take a different approach to get the results you're looking for, but you have to have awareness. And I think that that's a really big downfall, is when people don't have that, just awareness. So yeah, to your point, I think that's a great point, and something definitely people need to be aware of.
Well, to your point, Allie, I don't like to use the word negatives or weaknesses. I think that the way you have to look at them is developmental areas. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Places where you can get better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you approach the conversation with yourself on looking at ways that I can get better, it's much easier to accept those things and explore the different directions that you can go in. So
Yeah,
it's
that's a
really
really good
important
point.
the way you look at it. Your attitude going into that's important as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You've always preached that to me, honestly. So I know you're not just saying this for the podcast. That is true. Like, you can't look at your traits that maybe aren't so favorable to you and think of them as negatives. They're just a part of who you are. And you have to learn, like I said, how to navigate those and work with what you have. Um, for example, like, I know that when I join the team or any team, I'm a bold person. So sometimes I can come across maybe as a know-it-all. And it's like I have to learn how to channel that in a different way. So yeah, it's interesting. But when I think of investing in yourself, I think of taking time to prioritize your goals. And it's difficult because obviously you have a lot of people in your lives, like things are busy, but you have to take time out of your day every day to prioritize your goals and your ambitions. And that's something I'm recently learning how to do myself. And so, yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there for anyone watching. Like, take the time out of your day every day to sit down, look at your goals, look at where you want to be, and prioritize that. Make that a goal for yourself. So,
Well, I've been in this business a lot longer than you, and I still struggle with those things. So,
yeah, it's a hard thing to do. It takes time, and it takes time and effort. So, as far as resume building though, I mean, this is a crucial part of professional development, obviously. And resumes are tricky nowadays with like AI and just it's just all over the board complications, I feel like right now. So, this is one I really, really want to, hover on. So, to you, Jack, what has been the biggest mistake in your past with resumes?
well, let me point this out to you, Allie. If you ask 100 so-called experts on resume building and putting together resumes, you're going to get about 100 different answers on
Mm-hmm.
the different
Very
ways
true.
that you can do this. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I think that first of all, what everyone has to keep in mind, how many times do you change jobs in your career? You look at yourself. How many different jobs have you had as an adult, and looking at your career? How many different positions have you had?
Ugh. I mean, would technically be my first career as far as like retail and things like that, but
Okay, but let's look at the other jobs you've had. Let's look at all the jobs that you've had since you've turned 18 years old. How
oh,
many
okay.
jobs have you had?
Probably about five, something
Five.
like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so well, let's say five. Five
Okay.
is I think probably average.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you think about that. What that tells me is well, first of all, when you're good at what you do, you don't necessarily look at the next job. You don't
Mm-hmm.
look at your next position.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're not, so most people don't have a whole lot of experience building a resume.
Yeah.
Okay. Or preparing for an interview, all these different types of things. You're not going to have a whole lot of experience doing it. Okay. That's a good thing. Okay. For the most part. But at the same time, it tells us an area that we need to focus on when we go to get ready. And I think some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they look to put together a resume is there's a tendency to look at a resume the wrong way. Okay, your resume is a roadmap. It tells people where you've been, it tells them where you are today,
Mm-hmm.
and the most important piece, and the piece that people leave off all the time, it should tell people where you want to go. And I don't mean objective wants to be director of loss prevention for XYZ company. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm getting at is the resume should show the building blocks of your career. It should say Allie went from here,
Mm-hmm.
then to here,
Mm-hmm.
then to here, and then it can kind of then project you into the next position. Okay.
Mhm.
The way you do that, another mistake that people make there is that when they look at a job description, what they do is they give you a job description rather than telling me what you do. Okay. I
Mhm.
want to hear more about what you've accomplished. Okay. So when we have people out there, director or let's say you're a loss prevention manager, uh, loss prevention manager, apprehend shoplifters, court
Mhm.
testimony, conduct audits. Well, no kidding. Those are the things that a loss prevention manager does. Okay.
Right.
But what did you accomplish as a loss prevention manager? What sets you apart from somebody else? Did
Right.
you develop programs? Okay. Did you implement programs? Do you know what the sales volume is in your stores or your area of responsibility? Okay. These are things that are important. Do you build partnerships? Have you been promoted? Okay. If you don't say those things, as far as anybody that's reading your resume knows, you don't know them. Okay. It's really important that you look for ways to build that information into the body of your resume.
Right. So we have like two totally different opposite ends of the spectrum here. Like you're talking to like executive top people, leaders, and my end is more so for people that are just entering their career. So on top of all that, totally understand those things. And I think they're very important too. And, this is a learning process for me too, listening to you, Jack, right now. It's like mentally noted. But, for people just starting out, another thing I would add that I wish I would have known when I was in the process of, sending resumes and interviewing and all that is like, now is not the time to be humble. I tend to, when there's like a test about myself or anything like that, I'm overly humble and I will score myself lower than I probably am. And again, this is all fresh in my mind as I just had my annual review, my 1 year anniversary with LPM. But anyway, so now is your time to brag about where you've come from and brag about what you've done and build yourself up. To your point, Jack, like build yourself up to where you are now. What did you do before that? That's all a very important part of the puzzle. So I would, include that as well.
Well, where I would disagree with you, okay? The advice that I gave just isn't for those top leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Let me give you an example. You came out of a retail environment where you were a sales associate in the retail stores, right?
Yep,
Okay. Do you talk about interacting with customers on your resume? Do you
I
talk
do.
about providing good customer service on your resume?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Those types of things are things that are important to make sure that you're discussing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to just talk about things like, okay, I help merchandise. Well, did you put that you merchandise the sales floor? Okay.
Yeah, I
You
might
think
have.
about things like that are important aspects of what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that you might not add to your resume.
Right.
Okay. Do you were you part of receiving in the back of the store when stuff came in off the truck?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These are types of things that you did. Okay. That they're important to the role that you're in, and a lot of people leave them off. And
Right.
that's what's important to remember. It's to your point, it is the ability to talk about yourself better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's also looking for those types of things that accentuate who you are and how you stand out from other people.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Yeah, that's very true. I recall having a successful person once tell me like you have to find things that will make you, stand out compared to the rest of the crowd, the rest of the applicants and things like that. So that's really true. And I wanted to ask Jack to wrap up the resume section. If there was one single rule that you would tell our audience, like make sure you do this, what would that be?
I think where I'll go with that one is make sure you don't do this. Don't
Okay,
exaggerate.
that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Don't look for ways to build yourself into something that you're not.
Totally
Okay.
agree. Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of folks make mistakes. They look for
Mhm.
ways to um, really okay, simple things like one of the areas on a resume where people tend to exaggerate is their education. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not fooling
Yikes.
anybody, people.
Yeah.
Okay. When you say that um, you went to college for a bachelor's program, okay, well, that doesn't count if your bachelor's program meant that you spent half a semester working in 3 classes, okay? What we're
Yeah,
looking there is do you have a bachelor's degree, okay?
right.
Did you graduate, okay? And if you have graduated, make sure you say so,
Right.
okay? If you're a graduate from college, okay, you want to say 2024 graduate, whatever the
Mhm.
program is, and so forth. Okay.
And I would add, if you have a good GPA, add that in there as well.
Yeah, there's little steps that you can take like that help you stand apart.
Mhm.
Okay. That's what I would say more than anything else. Yes, you look at adding those building blocks, and that's important. Okay. But it's also very important not to try to add things in there that shouldn't be there, because that
Totally agree.
it will completely destroy your credibility in a matter of seconds
Well,
if you
not
do.
only that, but if, yeah, I mean, as far as credibility, absolutely. But also imagine you joining a team and they think you're going to do something and you have no idea how. That is just making your life so much more complicated. So yeah, absolutely. Don't exaggerate, build yourself up, but be honest in doing that, because that can just create so much more trouble down the line. So totally agree with that. But anything else on resumes you wanted to talk about
Well,
here?
one thing I'd add is, for those that have a lot of interest in these areas, there is a tremendous amount of content that we put together as part of LP Magazine. There's a
Hmm.
whole series of do's and don'ts with building a resume, how to build a resume, tips for
Yep.
building a resume, that
And
I would strongly recommend that you go take a look at.
totally. And we can link those in the, post below. So yeah, definitely check those out. I would say with almost a majority of these topics we're going over, there's going to be helpful information. So I'll absolutely link those. But as far as preparing for interviews, this interviews to me was always like, that's the scary part of the process. So I don't know. I just kind of want to talk about best practices for interviews. What would you consider are the best practices when interviewing?
Number one, a lot of people go into an interview with the idea of, okay, well, let's just kind of see how this goes. Okay.
Yeah.
That is
Mistake
absolutely
number
the wrong
one.
attitude to go into it. You
Yeah.
always go into an interview with the idea that this is the job that I want. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. And then you
Mhm.
take it from there. Okay.
Yeah.
If you do that, what's the worst thing that happens? Okay. You get in the middle of the interview, you find out it's not something you want to do. They make you an offer and you turn it down. I think
Right.
most of us can live with that. Okay. But the
Totally.
other side of that is well, let's just kind of see how it goes. You get into the middle of that conversation, realize it's something that you really wanted to do, and it's too late, just simply
Hmm.
because of the way that you approached it to start with. You've
Right.
got to have that attitude that this is specifically what I want to do going into that interview. You
Hmm.
have to be prepared. Okay. If you're going to look at a particular company, you should go look at their website. Okay. You should look at things like Yahoo Finance has always been a good one, because it
Hmm.
gives you a summary that's objective, that tells you a lot about what the company's doing, the types of
Yep.
ways their stock is performing. It'll tell you things that um, they're looking to expand upon, because it's intended for people that are looking to
Right.
uh, invest. Okay, so those types of things are good steps. The
Hmm.
other thing about being prepared, there's simple steps that you can take. So, Allie, what's 5 times 25?
I don't know. It's 125.
Okay, now I'm going to ask
Don't
you
make
that
me
that's correct.
blush.
It's 125. That's right. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you the very same question again. I don't want you to think about your answer. I just want you to answer the question. You ready?
Yeah, I guess.
What's 5 times 25?
125. Is
Okay.
this a trick
Yes,
question?
it's 125. I'm going to ask you one more time. This is
Okay.
important. Okay. I want you to think about, yes, that is the correct answer. And I want you to answer it. Okay. What's 5 times 25?
125.
Okay. That's better. All right. What I want you to think about is the way that you answered that question the first time and the way you answered it the last. Okay. I threw you completely off. You weren't expecting
Yeah,
that
you
question,
did.
right? Okay. Okay. You knew what the answer was,
Yeah,
but
I had
instead,
to
you know
double
what you
check
did?
because I thought it
Yeah,
was a
you
trick question.
stalled. Okay.
I did.
You said, "Oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. I don't know how to answer them. All these things were thrown." Then you know what? You repeat the question. What's 5 times 25? Okay. That's a stall tactic, right? The second time, you almost whispered it. Okay. Because you still weren't sure, right? But that
Yeah.
third time, okay, when I got to you, I said, "Okay, yes, it's 5 times 25 is 125." Okay. There was a confidence in you knew the question was coming. Okay. You knew what your answer was going to be. You had a confidence that your answer was correct.
Mhm.
And then you gave me an answer. And it comes through in the entire tone of your voice and the way you say something. That's very important when you get into these interview settings. Okay.
Mhm.
If you've thought through your answer beforehand and you've looked at the types of things that they might ask you,
Mhm.
and you learn to apply what you know to the types of questions that might be asked, it's going to make a huge difference in the way you come across in the interview. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does.
Those are the types of things that really do make a big difference when it comes into the idea of going into an interview. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to think through some of the things that they're going to ask you.
I agree. Yeah. I think that having confidence in your homework and your preparedness is very important. And that's something I always did. Every single time without fail. Like if you're going to interview with a company that you're interested, or even if you're not that interested in, you have to be doing homework on them because they are going to ask you questions. And for you to sit there and be like, that's just not a good look. And also I've had a lot of HR people and interviewers tell me it's really nice to see and hear that you've done your homework because a lot of candidates don't and then sit here and waste my time. And I totally respect that and understand that. So I find that vitally important as well. And, one thing I always did, and it always seemed to strike a chord with some people is, ask them a specific question about their company that they would not expect you to ask. Like, tell me about this project and how it was developed. And, even if that stumps them, that shows them that you care a lot about what they're doing. So that would be my advice as far as preparing for interviews. I mean, I could go on, but to your point, I would add to that.
Well, the other part of that, I think it's a good idea to ask questions that are personal to the person that you're interviewing with. Why
Mm-hmm.
did they join the company?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do they see as areas where the company can grow? Where do you see our company in the next 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Questions like that, that basically take that person you're interviewing with and you put yourself in the position already. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking them types of questions that will help them see you in the role. Okay. And people like to talk about themselves and they do like to look for ways that they can recruit you if they see you as a valuable person. And by being able to talk about their experiences and things that they've done, it gives you a much better perspective on what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
Okay. And it gives them a good opportunity to be able to talk about, what the company's all about and why you should look to join.
Right. And I think that those little intimate, personable moments do create a big connection, or they have the potential to create a big connection. So I think that's really important. That's also something I would make sure to do every single time is just ask them something about them, about, their process and how they got to where they are with this company, or it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but something to build a little connection will help them to remember you. So totally agree with that. Anything else you want to add on
No, I
interviewing?
think that's plenty.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. With that math question, let's move on. Okay, so last but not least, and I'm excited about this section because I think stepping out of your comfort zone is a constantly evolving thing in everyone's life. You should be always looking to move outside of your comfort zone. And that's something I actively work on all the time. And that's a struggle for me. So I really want to talk about that. And so I want to start off by saying, to me, when I think of what has helped me grow as far as my comfort zone, it's always been just taking a leap of faith. And then when you do fail, because you will, and like Jack, I know you know this, but speaking for my audience, our audience. Like when you do fail, it's okay and it's actually good to accept those failures because they're going to make you grow and become stronger, ultimately getting you out of your comfort zone. So if you want to add to that, go ahead. You can talk about anything you want, but that's what I first wanted to insert.
Well, Allie, what I would start with is thank you very much for pointing out to the entire audience that I've failed here and there in my career. That's always a good start.
We all
Okay.
have, come on.
Um, what I would say to begin with is change is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody
It
who
is.
says they're not afraid of change is a liar or a fool. Okay.
Mhm.
That's the bottom line right there. But change is also how we grow. Okay.
It
It's
is.
being able to look at things from a different perspective. It's looking at yourself uh, in a way that's self-reflective and
Right.
being able to see that this can be good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Being able to step outside my comfort zone and look at different things and different opportunities and different ways to grow. You know, there's
Right.
there's all different types of ways that we grow professionally, personally, and you can't separate those two things, by the way. Okay.
Mhm.
Your professional life and your personal life go hand in hand. You
Yeah.
know, it's why we call it work-life balance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Those types of things are really important. And you've got to be able to take a leap of faith, just like you said. You have to look at a new position or a new company or a new role in a way that um, it's positive. It's a good thing for me to be able to do this, and it's going to make me better as a person in the long run.
Right, absolutely. And, Paige, your little sister, if you're listening, or anyone that's, fresh out of college, I know how scary that feeling is. And for anyone, I know how scary that feeling is looking for a new career or job or opportunity. And you have that hesitation. Well, I don't want to do it because this, and this. Another thing I wanted to add is and I say this a lot, but you're never going to be 100% ready for anything in life. That's just my belief. Um, there's always going to be hesitation. And for example, when I applied to this job, are you kidding? Loss prevention, I was like, I have no idea what that is. But it was the mission of this company. It was what the focus is that drew me in. And although it is totally out of my comfort zone and totally was at that time, I knew I wanted to do it because one, it involved the things I like to do, but also the team is great. But since joining and reflecting now, it's like you do grow to be comfortable within your role. You're not, and if you don't, that's okay. Again, goes back to the failure part, or maybe not even failure, but just lack of interest, whatever. You always can typically have the option to get out of things, but I think it's so important to just take a leap of faith, like we've been talking about. So yeah, that ties in with my role here. And like I said, this is all very relevant in my time of life. But yeah, so to your point, that's what I wanted to add.
But what I think that you've learned too is that a lot of the things that we do in this career field and a lot of things that anyone out there is going to deal with in whatever career field they look to go into as they move forward is that it's not as different or as difficult as you might think. A lot of the things that we deal with here are common sense things. Okay. If you really broke it down and looked at it, okay, for example, catching a shoplifter, okay, do you just walk up to somebody and say, hey, you're guilty of stealing? No, there are steps that you have to go through to
Right.
make sure that you're right before you do those things, right?
Right.
Okay, though that's just common sense. And it's true with, we used a real simple one there, but it is true. No matter where you're looking to go in your career, there's going to be tie-ins to things that you have experience with that are
Absolutely.
going to give you something to rely on as you look to move forward. And that's what we all have to remember as we look to make those leaps of faith.
Right. And there's
Okay.
always going to be a learning curve. If you're going outside of your comfort zone, there's going to be a learning curve, period, with any opportunity. So, embracing those and being eager to learn more, I think is very vital as well. So, yeah, comfort zone it's a tricky one because I agree with you. Anyone that says they love change or things like that, I think that's kind of, I don't know about that. Um, I like change, but it's a scary process too. And I'm going through a lot of change in my personal life right now too. So again, very relevant. But I think that the more you're able to step outside of your comfort zone, the more you're going to grow. And that's just how I see it. So Let's see. The last thing in comfort zone I want to ask you, Jack, is if there was one single approach that you would take to begin stepping out of your comfort zone, what would that be?
Don't overthink it.
Good
I
point.
think that
Go on.
that's what it would
Yeah.
be.
Go
Is
on. Yeah.
don't overthink it.
Yep.
It really is that simple. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think that too often we do overthink things, and what ends up happening then is it can impact our confidence. It can
Yep.
impact a lot of different things just simply because we're thinking too hard about the decision we're looking to make. Yeah, you got to make smart decisions.
Right.
Okay. But I think that in a lot of cases, people just think too much about what they're doing and the steps that they're taking.
I agree 100%. And I think that that ties back into what I was mentioning earlier is you're never going to be 100% with anything. That's, again, just subjective, and that's my opinion. But I've always felt there's never going to be a time in life, whether it's personal, in professional development, you're never going to be 100%. So I agree 100% with what you're saying is just don't overthink it. If it feels right in your gut, you go with that. And if it doesn't end up being what you want or like, there's always typically another opportunity waiting. So, that is actually a wrap. Jack, is there anything else you want to add in on any of these topics or
No,
any
I
final?
think we pretty much wrapped it up. You know,
Yeah.
I think that I would say to everyone out there listening that it's important to take the steps to prepare, okay, have confidence in yourself,
Yes.
accept change
Yep.
and the idea of change, and don't overthink things that when you get into these processes. You've got a
100%.
long way to go in your career, and it's going to change. I promise you that in the next year, you're going to be doing things differently than you're doing today.
Hmm.
So, you know, no matter whether or not you have 5 years to go in your career or 50 years to go in your career, these are all
Right.
the same types of steps that you should be thinking about.
Yeah. And I think I would add to that for anyone listening, like, don't undervalue what you bring to the table and have, again, to your point, have confidence in what you have and what you're worth and what you can bring because I think oftentimes, especially younger people, they, think, well, I don't have all this. I don't have all the qualifications. It's like, again, take a leap of faith, put yourself out there, have confidence while doing that and see where it takes you. So thanks, Jack. This was fun. I loved this one. You definitely put me on the spot with the math question, but we'll look past that. So yeah, thank you for everyone for listening. This was episode 2, so stay tuned. Episode 3 will definitely be coming shortly. If you have any opinions on what we should next chat about, just let us know. Give us a message, comment below, anything like that. So we will see you soon, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.